Hello and good day, art appreciation classmates. So we are the Set E reporters, and we are moving on to the next chapter of our lesson, which is the chapter 8, the soul making and the Vincian principles. Before we proceed to the lesson overview, here's a quote from Pablo Picasso, and according to him, art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life. So he means that the dust of everyday life is washed away by art. Art cleanses the soul. Art fosters creativity, enhances problem-solving skills, increases self-esteem, and increases self-confidence. This metaphor describes how art washes off the dust of everyday life from the soul. Art, according to Picasso, is like water, but it doesn't literally wash the soul. The soul cannot literally become dusty. Our lives renewed through art in this way. So we've mentioned the Vincian principles. But for that, let us have first a short background of Leonardo da Vinci. So Leonardo da Vinci is the famous Italian scholar, widely regarded as the most brilliant mind of all time. Da Vinci excelled in not just one area, but rather he flourished across disciplines and created concepts that have lasted for centuries. Da Vinci is also a painter, sculptor, architect, engineer, and scientist. He was born on April 15, 1452 in the town of Vincian, Italy. And at about the age of 14, he became an apprentice to a famous artist named Verrocchio. He also learned to paint and sculpt under him, and was also taught the basics of metallurgy, drafting, chemistry, botany, cartography, and carpentry at his workshop. He collaborated with Verrocchio on a number of paintings such as The Baptism of Christ. One of his greatest paintings, The Last Supper, was commissioned to him by the Duke Lodovico Sforza, and Leonardo worked on it from 1495 to 1498. And Leonardo da Vinci started painting in his masterpiece Mona Lisa, also called La Gioconda, and completed it in 1506. Now let us proceed to the lesson overview. So what comes into our mind when we hear the word artist? So oftentimes when we hear the word artist, our usual bias is to think of someone who has done a magnificent painting, a masterpiece, so to speak. So what is soul making? The word making in soul making comes out of the Greek word poeo, which means to be the author or maker of something. So basically, you are the one who's correcting something about it. So you are the original one who crafted that idea or artwork. The reason for the term, for example, rather than soul builder or soul grower, is that the emphasis on creative, intelligent authorship. So you are the author of what you made, of course. So the making is not done by a personal process, but for intelligent ones. So in other words, dili basta-basta ang mag-craft of something or maghimo og artwork na very creative. Thus, a soul maker is someone who has created through his intelligence something unique or worthwhile. In fact, we often use the term contributions to society when we consider the works of an artist. Applied to art, soul making is an exploration and application of the imagination in an active way. It is a form of crafting stories, transforming moments into images and symbols, which can either be an innate or learned skill or a combination of both. So, corollary to soul making is a discussion of Leonardo da Vinci's so-called 7 principles. So, these principles includes the following. First, we have the curiosita or the inquisitiveness. Second, we have the dimostrazione or the learning from experience. Third, we have sensazione or use of the five senses. Fourth, we have sfumato or the openness to the mysterious. Fifth, we have the arti or scienza or balanced learning through the arts and sciences. Sixth, we have corporalita or the cultivating mental and physical fitness. And the last is the concione or the combination and connection. So that was just the overview of the lesson. So the next reporters will give us more idea about the soul making and the 7 dimension principles.
Hello everyone, my name is Aister Vasho and this is my topic entitled Learning Content and Activities. So the first one is soul making. Before that, we will know first the word artist. Artist has often been attributed to mean someone who is popular, someone who has contributed much in the fields of painting by producing such masterpieces as the Mona Lisa, the Last Supper, the creation painted of the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, to name but few. Okay, when we say artist, this will be the people produces painting like Mona Lisa, the Last Supper, the creation painted of the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Okay, let's proceed to soul making. The word making in soul making is derived from the Greek word poia, which means to be the author or maker of something. We have to emphasize the phrase author or maker of something, if only to derive home our point from the layman point of view. We are all artists from the simple reason that somehow we have to accomplish something that can be attributed us alone. Okay, when we say soul making, this is the theory that evil has to exist. The humans can develop their souls by living and becoming good, moral people. It gives a chance to learn from suffering and development moral virtues. That's all. Thank you.
So good day everyone. I am going to continue the discussion about the topic soul making and the 7 principles. Soul making is a very much closely related to crafting. That is the activity of making decorative objects with one's hands or of skillfully creating something, such as a story. Crafting could be done in any medium, which may be through painting, drawing, writing stories and poetry, dancing, composing, or taking notes. So in any crafting activity, there are always steps to follow. So we have 7 steps in crafting stories. First, we have find your key emotion. What moves someone to write something? So this is the main issue or reason why someone inspired to put into words one's desires of feelings. So, in other words, ang key emotion, it is the heart of matter. So, it is answers the question, what impression do I want to leave in the minds of the readers, something that will remain with them after reading this story. Must be remembered. Nevertheless, that the key emotion does not simply mean that you're leaving the readers a particular emotions like sadness, loneliness, boredom, happiness, hope, and etc. It has to be done within a particular context or situation. So that thus, if the sadness be the emotion that the author wishes to convey, he has to specify it according to his focus. So, for instance, ang imong napili nga key emotion is sadness. You need to specify it. Maybe the reason is about the family, friends, or in the environment. So, this situation must be has a universal effect or situation where others can relate. So, para mas more interesting, dapat ang imong mapili nga key emotion is kang makarelate ang tanan. So the second step, we have start with the hook. In order to catch the reader's attention right away, a good writer will start with something that is intriguing, something like, "It was one of those ordinary Mondays when I happened to pay a visit to my late mother." So, start with the hook means na kanang sa unang pagbasa pa lang sa readers, na siya mga pangutana or na siya rason nga mupadayon siya basa. Example nganong in this sentence kining nganong migamit siya sa term nga visit. So the readers must tempted to continue to read the story. The next step, we have write this story. So a famous Cebuano statement goes, "Daghang sulti, daghang sayop." Literally, too many words, too many mistakes. Perhaps the closest counterpart to this statement in English is the quotation from William Shakespeare's, "Brevity is the soul of a wit." So, and there is also other Shakespearean line which is more convincing, "Fall of sound and the fury signifying nothing." So the both of them means choose your words wisely. Take note that the reader does not have all the time in the world to read your story, so state your point clearly. Also, always bear in mind that a key emotion that you want to emphasize among the readers. Step means nga dapat daw mo gamit ka sa words wisely. Di ka dapat magpasikot-sikot more daghan pang explanation about one example, one situation. So the next step, we have write a strong ending. So basic rule that is applicable not only to writing stories but likewise in other forms of writing, such as speeches, orations, declamations, and the like, is to give a nice ending. So ang mga readers di na siya ganahan og mga kaning ending nga mabitin sila, so dapat nagid kay nice nga ending. Rather, they would either want to be ecstatic or sad once the story is done. In other words, there should be no unresolved issues after reading the story. So next, number 5, we have step number 5. Reread your story. Writing a story does not end when you already establish the ending. It good practice among writers is to reread the whole story as many as applicable. So there are 3 good reasons, including to check the flow of the words, though they stick to each other. So ang imong mga words dapat balik-balikon dyan na siya og check. Then review your key emotion. Ang imuhang napili nga emotion nga i-convey nimo sa readers. So have you successfully impressed upon the minds of the readers? So number 3, we have there must only one plot. Is the plot consistent, or does the story talk of so many subplots? So plot is the most important element of the story. Literary element that describe the structure of the story. So, naagi na siya natay in writing the story, natay pattern nga atong i-follow. So from exposition, rising action, climax, then falling action, then resolution. So dapat imo nang i-follow. Then next, we have the step number 6. Sometimes you might be so carried away with the story you're writing, thinking that you already done have to it in a moment, especially when you have already consumed a lot of spaces. So, in step number 6, as a reminder, always go back to your key emotion before declaring that the job is already done. So, thus you need to reread the work and edit it according to such extent that every word connects with the others in a cohesive fashion. So, in writing story, dapat imo na siyang balik-balikon o tanaw ang imuhang nahimo nga key emotion or imong napili nga maka-impress ba siya sa readers. So, nang check nimo ang imong words if it is already stick to each other, no? So, we have number 7, ask others for editing help. Don't rely too much on your own capacity, as the saying goes, 2 heads are better than 1. You might be surprised to know that there are still a lot of improvement you could make after you have consulted someone. So, in making story, you need help. Someone to help you dili kay musali ka sa mga ganun, but yun mas okay daw hunahon na kung kabalo ka, mas naay na kabalo nimo, especially in constructing a sentence or your grammar, the subject verb agreement nga need na nimo og kaning help. So that's the 7th step of crafting this story.
Good morning, everyone. I am Ginaline Gonzaga. So my topic is all about 7 Da Vincian principles. So before discussing the principles, I should say something about Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was the ultimate Renaissance man, an accomplished scientist, mathematician, engineer, inventor, anatomist, painter, sculptor, architect, musician, and writer. As a leader, an entrepreneur, a boss, we can learn a lot from the principles of Leonardo da Vinci. So first principle is curiosity. Learning starts with a sense of wonder. When we were still little children, we always asked questions like, where does the rain came from? Why is there night and day? Who made the earth? Why do people grow old? And so on. Leonardo da Vinci likewise possessed the same kind of curiosity as a child when he wondered about the world surrounding him. In fact, he never took yes for an answer and continued to press further for more answers. That type of person believes in the old maxim which goes, hitch your wagon to a star. In like manner, an artist never stops going over his finished work and is ever curious in looking for ways to improve it. A painter, for instance, can always change the colors in the canvas. Likewise, a writer is never tired of revising his work. As the Greek philosopher Socrates once said, I know that I know nothing. So the second principle is demonstration. There are 2 types of learners, those who simply observe and watch what is happening before them, and those who get involved by immersing themselves to the nitty-gritty of things surrounding them. So, as a young boy, Leonardo learned how to paint when he became an apprentice in the studio of his master, Verrocchio, who first taught him how to prepare canvases and paints. So the term apprentice is now used in several professions, particularly among seamen and pilots, to indicate someone who is just learning the ropes of the trade. More so in today's pandemic world, gatherings are being discouraged to avoid the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Everything is not lost. However, a student can still do virtual field trips by watching documentaries or short films about a chosen site or place of interest. So before I end this topic,
I'll give a short definition of the two principles. So curiosity, you need an insatiable curiosity of life. Great minds have one characteristic in common. They continuously ask questions throughout their lives. So, demonstration is a commitment to test knowledge through experience, persistence, and a willingness to learn from mistakes. So that's all my report.
So, good day everyone. I am Jamaica Marinu. This is my report, the continuation of the 7 Da Vincian principles. This is the Sinsazoin. For Leonardo, the eye is the window of the soul. He was, of course, giving special mention to the sense of sight because he was a painter. Nevertheless, he that meant to say that the eye is the only way by which we can learn. He likewise emphasized the importance of the other senses in learning. He lamented on the fact that the average person looks without seeing, listens without hearing, touches without feelings, eats without tasting, moves without physical, for example, like kanang inhales without awareness of fragrance and talks without thinking. Clearly, through learning can only take the place if we maximize the use of our senses. So, si Leonardo Cuna is the widow of the soul. He is the painter. He did not mean to say that the eye contact, the eye is the only way by we can learn. So Leonardo kanang he not meant to say that kanang our eye is the only way which we can learn. So I think Leonardo is the kanang painter, but he can paint or he can learn the with his eyes. So kanang Leonardo kanang he emphasized the importance of the other senses. So like for example awareness kanang inhales awareness, moves without physical, it's without tasting. So when we say sensazoin, the continual refinement of the senses, especially sight. So sensazoin the eye is the kuan kanang nag-focus to the our sight as the means to clarify experience. So according to Da Vinci, we can best practice demonstration through our senses, particularly sight. So we can best practice through kanang our senses para makuha na tuang our sight to dali ta kanang makabalo og paint, dili ra sa ingon nga kanang sa atong panglantaw, but kanang makahunahuna pud ta if og unsa ang atoang i-paint through sight. And so maura to sa about the sensazoin. So let's proceed to the second kanang sfumato. So literally the term sfumato means turned to mist or going up in smoke. Both the terms mist and smoke mean one thing uncertainly. In other words, we do not see clearly an object that is covered by mist or smoke. By embracing uncertainty, Leonardo was bent on introducing a theory. The tension of opposites, he emphasized his kind of tension in his paintings. So, sfuma to the eye is kanang turned into mist or going up and smoke. So, dili ta makakita og unsalan ang atong makuan kay matabunan siya og smoke kanang and mist. So gikaveran og covered by mist or smoke ang sfumato. So, when we say sfumato, derived from the Italian word fumo meaning smoke, refers to the technique of oil painting which colors or tones are blended in such a subtle matter that they melt into one another without perceptible transitions, lines, or edges. So, when we say sfumato, di ay is smoke or mist. Kanang matabunan di ay sa matabunan. Kanang, example, na kay drawing or kuan din, going up and smoke. So, sfumato, going up and smoke. A willingness to embrace ambiguity, paradox, and uncertainty. So, example, enjoying uncertain book of film ending research. So, most notably in such works as The Virgin of the Rocks and the Mona Lisa, where there is a contrast of light and darkness. So, kini di ang sfumato is the iyang example is katong Mona Lisa nga picture. Kanang katong there's a contrast light and darkness. Katong si Mona Lisa nga iyang kwan is kanang dark ang iyang background ana. So si Leonardo po is the nag-introduce siya og theory kanang the tension of opposites. Dayon he emphasized this kind of tension is his painting. So kanang how to use sfumato in a sentence. So example, how to use a sfumato sentence. The gods were anything and nothing. They got lost in sfumato. So mo na siya the example of the sfumato of the sentence. So kanang ang sfumato dias is kanang we do not see clearly an object that is covered by mist. Also nasulti na to siya nako kanang I repeat the sfumato is kanang like na siya smoke kanang mga aso ana na mata, like example kanang mga magkuan ka magpaint or kuan kanang with smoke ana. So kanang that's all for my report, and thank you. So kanang sfumato, I have an example of sfumato katong Mona Lisa in the picture. Katong kanang iyang background is darkness and light. Then when we say sfumato, kan magpaint bitaw ka kanang murag gabon ana, kanang murag nagmist siya. Mao na siya example sa sfumato kanang.
So, the fifth principle of the Vincian is arte or scienza. According to Nobel Prize-winning research of Professor Roger Sperry, the human brain has two dominant hemispheres, the left brain and the right brain. Okay, Roger Sperry was an American neuropsychologist, neurobiologist, and Nobel laureate. So, Professor Sperry laments about today's system of education. It is the fact that most of school would emphasize the left brain, which is the evidence by the abundance of courses measuring in computer studies, mathematics, nursing, medicine, and the like. In short, there is a dearth of courses catering to the arts. So there are actually several factors for such phenomenon. For instance, parents, especially in the Philippines, would wish their children to graduate from, say, nursing or computer science because they perceive it to be fastest way for their children to go abroad. Another factor is the most companies today's world would hire those graduated from the science courses and sell them only to those graduated from the arts degree.
So I'm going to continue the discussion about the 7 principles of the Leonardo da Vinci. So the number 6 is corporalita, or of the body, represent Da Vinci's belief that a healthy mind requires a healthy body, and the importance of cultivating both fitness and poise. So, corporalita is all about the healthy mind and the healthy body, according to Leonardo. So, usually, when we mention genius, what comes to our mind is an image of the man wearing thick glasses, his skirt and pants swaying almost like a flag that is blown by a wind, and where his thin body frames serve as a flagpole. This guy seldom goes out of his room, not because he is on the home quarantine, but because he spends most of his times reading books. If there are invitations from his friends to have some fun outside, he would be vehemently turn them down and say, I am too busy. I'll get along maybe some other time. So, when we heard the word genius, ang mabutang daw sa unang sa tao is katong kining sige wear glasses then permi mag stay sa room reading the books. But contrary to our usual impression, Leonardo would have none of those characteristic of a genius mentioned above. So, sa nga na characteristics, so sa ka-genius, wala si Leonardo, tigisag isa. So, we all know that Leonardo is also a genius man, and in fact, he was an expert equestrian who was fond of stopping horses at a full gallop by catching their reins. So indeed, he was not mentally alert, but also he is also physically fit. So one who espouses the ideal Roman adage means sana in corpore sano, means a healthy mind with a healthy body. So to remain the healthy lifestyle, Leonardo has a healthy lifestyle rules. So understandable naman siya kaano. So we have 12 rules. Si Leonardo na siya gibuo nga healthy lifestyle rules. So the first rule we have, beware of anger and grievous moods. So dapat mulikay ka sa mga kaning sige lang kag pamusog o dayon kaning kuan dapat dili kay nga mugsige og pas ag problema. So ana. So second we have rest your head and keep your mind cheerful. So dapat di lang ma-stress. Then 3 we have be covered well at night. So then 4 we have exercise moderately. Then number 5 we have shen wantones or pay attention to diet. So dapat balance ang imong kaon. Then 6 we have eat only when you want and stop light. So mukaon lang kagut mo or ug nangayo imong tiyan sa mukaon kay mukaon bisag busog ana. Then number 7 we have keep upright when you rise from the dining table. Then number 8 we have do not be belly upwards or the head lower. Then number 9 we have let your wine be mixed with water. Take a little of a time, not between an empty stomach. Then number 10 we have eat simple. Then 11 chew well, and last go to toilet regularly. Last principle is conshani or connection for his habit of wearing together multiple disciplines around a single idea, recognizing and appreciating that all phenomena are connected. So a familiar joke goes, if America sneezes, the whole world catches colds. So this joke is intended to emphasize the fact that America is the most powerful nation in the world. has a great influence in the lives of people around the world. Whatever is the latest trend in the US concerning, say, high-tech gadgets or fashion will inhabitants in this planet. Likewise, whatever developments are happening in China will also affect other countries. So another joke goes, God made the world, the rest is made in China. Just imagine anything from electronic devices to branded shoes and pants, and you will see the familiar mark attached to the label made in China. So a bombing incident in Indonesia or in any other territory, regardless of its size, will surely send shockwaves to visiting tourists and to the countries where they belong. Nevertheless, it would be a biased position if we think in terms of a big countries affecting smaller ones. For even smaller countries could affect. For instance, what is happening in the For instance, what is happening in the disputed Spratlys Island has become a major concern among the world leaders. Conshoni means connection. So, kung isag unsa pa ka gamay ang butang na jud ma-influensyahan nga lain nga tao. Just like the America, the most powerful nation in the world, so na siya a great influence to the people around the world. It may be sound rather strange, but for Leonardo, the earth is moved from its position by the weight of the tiny bird resting upon it. So each creature, no matter how small, it has an influence on the others in a way or another. So just like the example, the school janitor, we consider that janitor is the lowest ranking individual in the entire organization of workers, but it doesn't mean is that but it does not take away the fact that without him the campus will be dirty. So another example is kaning the virus or the COVID-19. So nagikan ni siya sa usa lang ka lugar, but daghan nga tawo nga naapektuhan na. So ang whole world na naapektuhan. So ingan ang gimin sa konsyon niya. Bisag gamay nga butang or dako na-adyo ma-influensyahan or maapektuhan ang nga butang. So thus each of everyone must learn to value the role of others in the community. So, dapat kabalo ta mo value sa rules o sa katawo din sa nagpuyo sa kalibutan, no? So kuan man siya tig janitor, abogado, or sa taas ba siya position or mubo, so dapat need to respect or to value their role as a member of the community. So that's the end of our discussion. I hope you learned something, and keep safe and God bless.